Okay, good morning and welcome to the AGM for Lancashire Police and Crime Panel. First thing on the agenda is the appointment of the chair. I've received one nomination, is Councillor Gareth Dowling for the appointment of the chair. And I just wanted everybody, I forgot everybody's indication if they're okay with that. Be okay with that? Right. Over to you, Gareth.
Thank you very much. Welcome, and we'll move on to item number 2, which is the appointment of Deputy Chair. Do we have any nominations? Councillor Whip.
Can I propose Roger Murray?
Yeah, happy to second that. Is the panel happy with that appointment? Lovely. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Okay, we'll move swiftly into item number 3, which is the membership review. So Asa's just going to take us through briefly the points within the report about making up the percentage apportionments.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. First of all, I'd like to apologise for the lateness of the report. It has been a little bit more trickier this year in trying to sort of align the nominations we receive with the actual political composition. I know there was only one election in Lancashire at the county council, but even so, it was quite trickier than usual. So, firstly, we worked out the political composition from the information provided by the 15 local authorities. So in the report, we've got the actual percentages there. So just a reminder, the panel initially consists of 15 elected members, one from each of the 15 local authorities. We've also got 2 co-opted independent members. One of them is Miranda Carruthers-Watts, another was Richard Glover, who's sent his apologies. So them 2 are non-political, and then the panel's got an option of appointing 3 co-opted elected members to achieve a sort of a political balance. So that's what this panel has done for a number of years. Of course, we can't get 100%, but we can get as near as possible. The other requirement is in relation to having skills, knowledge and experience. This is also in the regulations, so we can also take that into account as well. So just going back on to the composition, so we've got 15 panels. We can have 3 co-opted, up to 3, and we have this sort of 2 independent, but the maximum legally we can't have more than 20 on the panel. So in terms of the percentages are there, and I've done a sort of what that translates into number of seats is there. So basically it didn't align. So we've actually applied this sort of co-option. So, but before we did that, we invited all 15 council leaders to actually review their nominations, or see if they were really wanted to change. So the chief executive of the Horse Authority wrote to all the leaders, and we only had one local authority who were willing to change their nomination from Labour to one of their independents, who are the administration. But that is subject to their full council approval. So, but even after that, when we sort of tried to look at the sort of the proportionality, it didn't align. So we've had to apply the co-opted. We have to apply the sort of co-opted elected members, and although sort of the closest I achieved was having 2 additional co-opted members, but there's an option for the panel to have of a 3, the 3 to achieve the full membership and get them wide as possible. So that's there, and I've also set out in the report the options the panel has got in relation to appointing the 3 sort of additional co-opted members, which of course would be subject to their full council approval as well. Which, so if it was approved, if the recommendations were approved, we'd be sort of writing to their councils and saying this is what the panel wishes, and they need to sort of go through their governance process to appoint those members as well. So I'll leave it up to the panel.
Thanks, Asad. Does anyone have any comments or questions on the report and the suggested co-options? Councillor Whip.
Chairman, I'm content with the rationale as set out in the report in terms of the composition. In order to achieve balance, I've canvassed opinion back at Pendle, we would be happy to nominate a further independent member, which would assist with the political balance, but also the diversity of the panel as well. So that offer is on the table. So one of the two independent nominees for the additional members. Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Whip. That would mean at the expense of one of the three that are currently suggested in the report. So if it was to be sort of moved formally, you'd need to choose who you'd be wishing to not approach at this stage, Wire, Fylde or Blackburn.
Well, Chairman, I'm not sure that there's anything on the table, as it were, at the moment.
In terms of the report, there is. The recommendations are set out in there that we could. I'm happy with the report and the recommendations and the co-options that's set out. So I'm happy to move with them if the panel are happy with that. Seconded. All those in favour? Okay. That's passed. Thank you very much. Then item number 4 is to reappoint Blackburn McDowran as the host authority and Assad to continue as secretary. If the panel are happy with that also, I am. That agreed? Agreed. Lovely, thank you very much. Okay, item number 5, now we're on to apologies. Oh, okay. We'll do some quick introductions. So yeah, Councillor Gareth Dowling, West Lancashire representative and chair of the Police and Crime panel.
Councillor Roger Berry, I represent Wire Council.
Jane Watson, I'm the Democratic lead for this.
Morning everybody, my name is Mark Kendall of Ribble Valley Council.
I'm Councillor Shaukat Sen, Blackburn with Darwin, Borough Council.
David Whip from Pendle.
Julia Berry from Chorley.
I'm Assad, the secretary to the panel. I'm also the monitoring officer for the Horse Authority.
Okay. Welcome to a couple of new appointments. Thank you very much. And apologies. So just in terms of the task and finish groups, which we didn't cover, the plan is to carry forward the task and finish groups as they were previously constituted. I believe there's still a bit more work to do, but for those who are interested, oh, sorry, Miranda, go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, that'd be great. So the role is finished, but we've still got retail crime, e-bikes and scooters. So there has been some panel changes. So if you're interested in either of those task and finish groups, please do get in touch with myself or Jane or Assad to indicate your preference to join that task and finish group. We'll include them in the minutes as well. Okay. So on to the minutes of the last meeting. They've been previously circulated. Are the panel happy to approve them? Agreed? Okay. Thank you very much. Declarations of interest. Is there any declarations that are otherwise undeclared? Nope. Lovely, thank you. Public question time. I don't believe we have any public questions. Nope. And then straight on to item number 9, which is the Police and Crime Commissioner's annual report. So, Commissioner, over to yourself. Thank you.
Okay, okay, thanks, Chair. Police and Crime Plan was published in December 2024. As we know, following a public and stakeholder consultation, the annual report itself tracks work up until the March of this year. And then the performance report outlines the work of the past 3 months. you'll see that for the first time, services for victims of crime now include dedicated support for those affected by stalking. We know that is one of the key priorities for the government, and we are playing our part within Lancashire. Additionally, my office has secured over 440,000 to continue tackling domestic abuse and breaking the cycle of repeat offending and hopefully thereby protecting victims and their children. Since taking office, people will be aware about the number of times that e-bikes and e-scooters comes up. So we've been lobbying government to address the issues around e-bikes and scooters, most importantly, to increase the presence of police officers within our towns, cities and communities across Lancashire. And that's a key part of the campaign that we have as well, contained within the Police and Crime Plan. We've also secured an additional 1.7 million to fund targeted foot patrols. Very important when dealing with all these issues is about getting as many officers on the streets as possible. And this will help pay for an additional 53 police officers, 30 PCSOs and 20 special constables, which then obviously plays its part in delivering the neighbourhood policing guarantee. All about getting as many officers visible, rebuilding the connection with the community, and bit by bit we're putting officers back in the right place to deal with all the issues that people bring to us. And happy to take any questions on the annual report, Chair.
Thanks for that, Commissioner. Over to panel. Any questions or comments? Councillor Whip.
Yes, Chair. Could I just ask Clive about the additional numbers there? And looking at the overall figures, we're getting back to the sort of level of establishment, the number of police officers that we had back in 2010 before there was a significant decline. What I'm not seeing on the streets is the same level of police officers, community beat managers, local police officers, the neighbourhood policing teams that we once had. And my question to Clive is, how will he work with the Chief Constable in order to ensure that there is a real policing presence on the streets of Lancashire? And can he give me an assurance that policing, new police officers or the police officers overall aren't going to disappear into specialist units that are largely invisible to residents and members of the public?
Yes, thanks, Chair. The additional resources is specifically around the neighbourhood policing guarantee, and that is about getting those additional officers in the community, out there, visible, doing the work that the public are telling us is so important to them. Councillor Whip is right in terms of the overall police numbers being equivalent to what we had in 2010, but what I would say is that the police staff numbers are still well down on what we were at that time, and Lancashire itself and the demands on policing has grown significantly over that time. Notwithstanding that, the challenges that we face are specifically around visibility, neighbourhood, and they will deal with everything the public is telling us that they want. So the numbers I gave was the additional resources for the neighbourhood policing guarantee. We have to justify to government on a monthly basis what we are doing with that money. and they are demanding that visibility, which is exactly what Council Whip is asking for. And we also have a campaign over the summer which is all around safer streets within the towns and communities across Lancashire, about making sure that we are reconnecting with the public. And so I can give an absolute reassurance that these additional resources will be used exactly in the way that Council Whip is looking for. Rebuilding neighbourhood, rebuilding the connection with the community, and improving the visibility, and making sure that up Centurion, the strategy that we have in Lancashire to tackle antisocial behaviour is bolstered even further.
Thank you, Commissioner. Panel, any other questions or comments on the annual report? Okay, so that is noted by the panel. Thank you. Commissioner, if you want to go forward onto your update report.
Thanks, Chair. Now, this is themed because obviously it's about the priorities, so we've got the different priorities in order, and so it might be worth just going through them one by one, and then if there's any questions about that particular priority, then we can take it at that point. I mean, the first one there, we've got the prevention of violence against women and girls. You'll see within that strategy, we highlight the funding for street pastors, street angels, the improvement to the nighttime economy, making sure that people are safe if they're going out within the towns across Lancashire. Really kind of important and value for money. There's nothing better than the work that we're doing with that. We've got I mentioned about stalking, we've got specialist training on stalking that is being commissioned. We have got the Drive project, which is about working with perpetrators of domestic abuse, breaking the cycle, protecting victims, and so we are assessing the success and evaluating that scheme itself, as well as the Lancashire MARAC, which is the Multi-Agency Risk Reduction Assessment Conference. We want to make sure that what we have in Lancashire is working to deliver the best services and the best value for money with that. We have a plan again with the White Ribbon, and that has been a successful campaign for us in the past, the White Ribbon. White Ribbon is specifically about men standing up against violence against women. There are lots of work that we do on violence against women and girls. The White Ribbon is just one aspect of that, but we want to make sure that continues within Lancashire. We've got other work going on with an MP's Violence Against Women and Girls group, Lancashire MPs, and we want to use the MPs to assist us with our strategy within Lancashire, but also where we think we can influence policy within Westminster for them to become our voice on that as well. And I think in terms of other things, funding that we have available that we've just announced, I think today is the first day, and that is theming the community grants that we have, and the latest community grants are for applications up to £5,000, and they are specifically for tackling violence against women and girls. So a range of activities that we've got there to deliver the priorities that we have. But if there's any questions on that one, we can take them now, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Panel, any questions or comments? Councillor Berry.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Still depressing. The figures are still fairly depressing, aren't they? I mean, violence against women and girls represents about 24% of all crimes, and the figures are showing, you know, a sort of an increase, slight increase on violence against women, but a 17% increase in violence against girls, which I think needs to be investigated. How, you know, is that males against girls, or is it girls upon girls? I don't know. And of course, the other one is rape and sexual offences, up by 17%. I mean, at local levels, we have this violence reduction network. It's been in place for quite some time, and I just wonder how effective it is and whether it can be beefed up. And, you know, is good practice being shared at sort of local levels throughout Lancashire? We know what works, what seems to be successful, and passing it on to our areas. Is that a feature that could be beefed up? Because you know, it's still a headline figure that we want to see reduced, is violence against women and girls.
Yes, Chair. I mean, there's a real danger in having a fixation on statistics. I know the government have announced they want to, over a period of 10 years, halve the number of victims of violence against women and girls. It's a noble aim, but of course, part of the work that we are doing, having the real kind of emphasis on violence against women and girls, tackling domestic abuse, breaking the cycle of abuse, is about building up trust and confidence within the system, so that officers themselves know what they are looking for, they know where to signpost, they know the right support that can be given within Lancashire. And in doing that, inevitably the hope would be that more victims of domestic abuse and violence against women and girls will come forward and seek support in the first instance. We know, again, statistically, a victim of domestic violence will be a victim many, many times over before they ever come forward to seek support. We want to bring that forward. We don't want victims of domestic abuse and violence to be in a situation where they suffer over an extended period until the situation becomes absolutely critical before they will come forward. So everything that we are doing in terms of promoting our campaigns, the priorities that we've got, the connections that we have, the commission services that we are commissioning within Lancashire, is really designed to ensure that victims come forward sooner and we prevent victims from occurring in the future. So I think, like I said, I think there's a danger in just looking at the birth statistics and thinking, well, is a rise a bad thing? I think initially we want to see more people coming forward, more people reporting. We just need to make sure we are providing the right support.
Sorry, I didn't catch your name or authority.
Councillor Coupland, Zaffa Coupland from Preston City Council.
Go ahead. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Clive. My question in terms of strategy is, sorry, it's echoing, in terms of BME South Asian women, population across Preston. And the strategy for me isn't strong enough in terms of prioritising the BME South Asian women, and especially with women with no recourse to public funds, and how that is really difficult when we're working with victims of domestic violence with women with no recourse and getting them into refuge. And I was wondering if, you know, you can highlight or we can strengthen the strategy in recognising that and how we can take that forward, because there isn't ever a specific task group to look at that element of the population we're serving. And I agree with my colleague that in terms of that data, it's never clear because of the underreporting, given the culture and religion and the stigma around that. So I'd like a bit more the strength in that strategy in terms of BME women. Thank you.
A couple of things there. Really, it was remiss of me not to mention that we also have, through my office, commissioned an additional 9 PCSOs that are dedicated to tackling domestic abuse, and it is in the report. And they will assist the work of police officers when they go out to deal with repeat, because quite often they'll go to the same address time and again to provide the support for those families. In terms of the specific question, in terms of the South Asian community, I just wondered whether I could bring in Rebecca, because I know a lot of work has been going on in liaising with different community groups to inform our strategy, and she may be able to give a more detailed answer to that. Are you there, Rebecca?
Hello, hi. Rebecca Keach. I'm the Senior Policy and Partnerships Manager in the Police and Crime Commissioner's Office, with primary responsibility for commissioning and procurement. And I've just got a couple of things to add from what Clive said there. So we're working really closely with the upper tier authority areas who've got responsibility for refuge and accommodation-based support to understand the no recourse public funds pathway and ensure that we've got a joined up approach, a multi-agency joined up approach for victims who have no recourse. So that should be a toolkit, hopefully, that we'll be able to roll out very soon to partners to help them understand what the landscape looks like and how we can have we can start the ball rolling for those with no recourse at the earliest opportunity. The other thing to add would be that we funded some immigration specialist advice in our victim support offer last year, but also in HUMRAS, who are a specialist BAME organisation in the Blackburn area. So those are some funded pieces of work that we've done specifically to support women with no recourse. Thank you.
Just to supplement the question, is there any mileage to commission the voluntary community face sector in terms of the immigration work rather than victim support? Because that's on the ground, that's the direct work the voluntary community face sector doing with communities. And if we could have that rather than going through another conduit, another organisation, that'd be absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, so we took a dual approach with this. So funded through our core domestic abuse service, which is victim support, who get the majority of police referrals, but also identifying that women who from the BAME community might find it difficult to engage with the police and our traditional victim services, and that's why we funded HUMRAS specifically to do that immigration work.
Point, Chair, but HUMRAS is just one organisation in Lancashire, so, you know, across Lancashire in terms of voluntary community face sector, there's lots of organisations who are doing that work on the ground and who are working regularly with 50, 60 women a week that are in that category. So that's why we wanted the strategy strengthened in terms of recognising that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barnes?
Thank you. Hi Clive, you okay? You mentioned before about one of the big things was around building up trust between the community and the police. And one of the things that I've worked on over the past few years is the Making a Misogyny a Hate Crime campaign. And in the police forces where they've trialled recording that sort of data, they've seen huge increases in reporting and then obviously being able to deal with what's going on. So like Nottinghamshire was the first area to do that. And there's quite a lot of research and reporting on that. But then also in North Yorkshire, Somerset and Avon as well. So I just wondered whether that's something that could be considered or something that could be trialled to sort of strengthen and build that level of trust between the communities and the police.
Okay, so to be clear, what you mean is recording instances of violence against women and girls as a hate crime, so misogyny.
Yeah, or as a hate incident as opposed to a hate crime, because obviously it isn't a legal hate crime at the moment. It just helps build up a picture of actually the problem at its start, because we know a lot of people who go on to be perpetrators of domestic violence, it started with misogyny, and I think in the rise of the Andrew Tate culture and the let's face it, the far right rhetoric around women and girls, I think we need to be showing that we're going down at source rather than waiting until we get the crimes upstream.
Yes, Chair, we haven't at the moment. We haven't looked into deciding whether that will be something to introduce within Lancashire. But as always, we would be open to any suggestions. If it's working elsewhere, then we can have a look at the success in Nottingham and other places. If that will be something that will improve the trust and confidence within Lancashire, then anything that we can do to deliver better service, I'm open to.
Any further questions, comments from the panel? Just one from me, Commissioner, just on terms of the funding towards street pastors, which you know, obviously I welcome. Is there any scope for the PCC's office to support a sort of best practice for any other areas that would wish to set up? I know it's not strictly a police project, but obviously those areas that are doing it seem to be doing it quite well.
Sorry, Chair, I missed the question.
Is there any scope for your office to put together a best practice document for other areas that may wish to also set up? So we've got 5 distinct areas there, but there might be other districts that to gather the evidence and the outcomes, how they set up, that sort of thing.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, we're keen to learn from other forces and other PCCs and the work they're doing. And likewise, you know, we as a collective group nationally, we get together and we do share information ourselves about the work individual PCCs are doing. You know, in Lancashire, we absolutely want to be at the forefront. You know, it's a key priority for us, but we want to be the best force we can possibly be. Not just, you know, we want to be the best in the country. And so any ideas we can pick from elsewhere, we will do, but we are happy to share what we are doing in Lancashire. If other forces or other PCCs would like that information, by all means.
But specifically on street pastors in sort of Ormskirk and Chorley and so on, sharing that best practice with other areas of Lancashire that might want to set up as well, is that something that your office could support with some limited resource, possibly?
Yeah, yes, of course.
Any final questions on this? Okay. Panel are happy to note that update report as well. Thank you, Commissioner.
So the next one, Chair, is tackling crime and antisocial behaviour. I mentioned earlier about Op Centurion and the additional resources that we've got going into that. Also, the Safer Street Summer Plan, again, working on that with the government, the additional police officers that will add the visibility, PCSOs. It's all about making sure that we don't just add the numbers, but we add them in the right place so the public actually see the benefit of that. We've had the community grant applications open for applications for the summer, and we've had 98 submissions. Most of that will be diversionary activities for young people over the summer period, getting young people, giving them productive things to do rather than causing a nuisance, working with a range of organisations as well. We are the Operation Vulture, working with retailers, businesses, shops, protecting shop workers, making sure that people don't think they can get away with shoplifting with impunity. We've had a huge kind of success with that campaign. So a range of strategies that we've got to tackle crime and antisocial behaviour, a real focus over the work that we're doing over the summer months, but critically, like I said, it is about all to do with ensuring that police officers are where they need to be. Just because I've got the statistics in front of me, in terms of Up Centurion itself, over the past 12 months, just to highlight the success of it, we've had nearly 5,000 people that have been arrested and over 800 civil orders to tackle antisocial behaviour just through the work of Up Centurion.
Councillor Whip.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I ask about Operation Centurion? As I recall, Centurion is devotes resources, additional resources, into redlined areas where there are high levels of antisocial behaviour. And the experience that we have in Pendle is that there is a displacement effect. So I represent the West Craven area on the Borough Council, and what we see is increasing numbers, and I'm not saying everybody's involved in antisocial behaviour is a young person, but we're seeing numbers of young people coming out of the areas where Centurion is operating and causing issues in neighbouring townships where Centurion doesn't operate, and there aren't the neighbourhood policing officers. There isn't a presence on the ground to actually keep a grip on the problems that arise. So, Clive, are you happy that this concentration of resources isn't just making the problem go elsewhere?
Chair, as we mentioned, Centurion has been going for a little while now, and it's been constantly reviewed in terms of the success or otherwise. I think there's some evidence that in some places there's been a genuine reduction in crime and antisocial behaviour, and that's continued even when Centurion has moved on. In other places, I think there's evidence of displacement. And so to continue with Centurion, and Centurion itself as a brand is Lancashire's overall strategy to tackle antisocial behaviour. So Centurion covers all the work that the police are doing with on antisocial behaviour. But to deal with the issues that have been raised, Centurion itself is becoming more flexible in terms of the dedicated areas. And so rather than just being fixated on it's got to be this specific area, and if something happens in the next street, we don't deal with that because we have to deal with it within a specific location. It's become more flexible than that because clearly everybody, wherever you live, deserves a service. If you've got antisocial behaviour, the last thing that I want to be telling people is, you know, we have this postcode lottery and you live in the wrong street. And so that is why we've learned from some of the criticism. It has become more flexible. We're looking at how we can use police officers and the engagement in different ways. We have now what's called Operation Centurion on Wheels, and that is about going out into some of the more rural kind of areas across Lancashire, having pop-up kind of police bases where they can engage with the local community, police officers, PCSOs, market days in Clitheroe, in Chorley and elsewhere as well. It's all about the interaction with the public and how we can then learn from the public in terms of where we need to go to provide that support. So it has become more flexible to deal with the exact issue that you've been talking about. So the resources remain, but in terms of how we deliver the service, that is being tweaked so that nobody misses out.
Councillor Berry?
Obviously, in Chorley, the Operation Centurion has been going for some time. I'm just interested in what measurable outcomes have we seen so far, and how are we evaluating its long-term impact on antisocial behaviour. And I would like to pick up the same thing that Councillor Whipps mentioned about the issue moves around, into the parishes where we're quite vulnerable. Chorley received funding from the Safer Lancashire Neighbourhoods Fund, and you have mentioned a few things, but can you provide an update on how that money is being used and whether it's reaching the communities most affected by antisocial behaviour?
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Chair. I mean, as I mentioned, in the past 12 months, we've had, from Op Centurion, the strategy where the police go out, dedicated teams to deal with antisocial behaviour, just under 5,000 people. It's probably more than 5,000 by now. Those are the latest figures that have been arrested just on the Op Centurion strategy. 833 was the latest figure for civil orders to tackle antisocial behaviour. The feedback that I've had personally from groups that we work with, and particularly community groups across Lancashire, has been overwhelmingly positive, that actually they do feel genuinely the benefit of Centurion. Some of the concerns, like Councillor Whip raised, was really about, well, what happens outside of those dedicated areas, and we've had to now factor that in so that we're not missing people. But in terms of the funding, we provide proceeds of crime funding for community grants. We're giving out more funding, I think specifically now, than we've probably ever given out. 98 applications, I think around 8 of those was approved for activities over the summer. We've got a new community grant scheme out today, specifically for violence against women and girls. We have a separate fund that we have with community safety partnerships to encourage community safety partnerships to work with us. And so we are providing as much support as I think we can, and it is about really working with the public, working with the local authorities about how we can dedicate resources to ASB. And you mentioned about some of the areas that that traditionally get left behind. That is exactly why we're looking to have pop-up teams that go to various places, engage with the public. If you let us know where you think they should go, we'll send them there. We'll make sure that they get a service. Thanks, Chair.
No further questions on part, Anne? Thank you.
A dedicated area that is known for drug dealing, antisocial behaviour, real kind of problem areas. And then housing, you work with housing so that you can evict those families. You work with some of the young people that are getting involved in crime and criminal behaviour, antisocial behaviour, to turn their lives around. Give them positive role models, have a look at local businesses, offer jobs, opportunities. It's been a real success. We now have, it was trialled in Fleetwood, that has been a success, that is building all the time. It is now being launched in Pendle, in Nelson and Briarfield. great range of partners that are involved there as well. And the latest one is in the Deepdale New Hall area of Preston. It is about that intensive work, get more police officers really tackling some of the problem households, families. It is about drugs, gangs, and some of the really more serious issues that we face, but that has proved to be a real success in a relatively short time. The POLED education program that we've got that now is working within most of the schools, 65% of the schools in Lancashire have already signed up to POLED. It provides a resource that teachers and police officers can use within schools around a range of issues, antisocial behaviour, drugs, sexual exploitation, whatever it might be, that then they can use those within the schools to create conversation and advice for young people. Again, the feedback has been immensely positive from those schools, and now we're looking to see whether we can widen POLED out from just being schools to see whether we can use it within social care, for example, some of the children's homes and other people that we have working within young people in Lancashire. Again, great success in a relatively short time. And the other big campaign that we've got is on population sector, which is about tackling knife crime, and again, working with young people within schools. POLED is a part of that. We have dedicated kind of weeks where we have knife bins, and you would be amazed by the number of knives and the range of things that are handed into the police. We do know that knife crime is a serious issue for us, and so it's about raising awareness, particularly with young people, about the danger of knife crime, about going into schools, about having the campaigns where they can give up knives and hand them in. So all that is working really well. So again, any questions on serious violence crime, happy to try and respond.
Well, Councillor Whip and then Rhonda.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to ask a little bit about clear hold build. And as you mentioned, Clive, parts of Pendle have recently had the launch of clear hold build. And this is a concentration of resources into areas of greater demand, if I can put it that way. What monitoring is done to see what the impact of that is? And just harking back to my Operation Centurion, which again is a concentration of resources into specific geographic areas. What are the wider implications of that? And thinking about your next priority, which is trust, confidence in the police, what's your thoughts on resources being targeted and sucked into specific geographic areas and the impact that that has on confidence over a wider footprint, and whether that perception of specific areas getting all the resources undermines confidence elsewhere?
Chair, I mean, it's a good question. It's the kind of questions that I do ask myself, because when you've got a dedicated area, what you don't want is displacement, and so that you're dealing with one area, but actually all you're doing is moving, you know, drug dealers and gangs from one area to another. But at the same time, what we, you know, the areas that are chosen for a reason, and that is the number of complaints that you get, the real issues that people feel that they can operate with impunity. The public do lose trust when they are reporting households and families, and these do tend to be families, you know, it tends to be kind of generational, where they're reporting these things going on and nothing ever seems to be done. And so that is why the concept came about in the first place, that when information was being passed over to the police, you needed to demonstrate that action was being taken. You needed to work with the key partners, particularly housing, but other partners as well, to make sure, you know, when we're looking at evictions, moving people from properties, you need that all lined up. You need everything lined up together so that you can then move the families, you can put orders on, preventing the offenders coming back into that location, into that town. And so all of them work together. And it is absolutely about building up the trust and confidence of the public, so that when they tell you there are issues going on, there are problems that are occurring within the community, that you are seen to be dealing with that. And that has been the success that we have seen so far. And that is the true measure. The true measure is actually the trust and confidence within those communities, that they feel confident, that they can come forward, that they can report, and action will be taken. Because you'll find that you'll get told in a lot of places within Lancashire, people give up reporting because they don't believe that action will be taken. We need to build that confidence and trust back into the community, and that is why specific areas, you know, we're looking at Nelson and Briarfield. The concern with that geographical area was, if you kept it too small, you would have displacement. So we've had to widen the area. By widening the area, then it becomes a bit more of a challenge because you need more resources going into it. But it is for exactly the reason that we don't want displacement. We want the public to know in that area we will deal with whatever comes forward, we'll deal with the problems. Trust and confidence is what we're aiming for. We want people to come forward, report, and we will ensure that it will be, in those areas, it will be dealt with. And so we can then extend it elsewhere, but you've got to start somewhere. And this, again, in a short time, is proven to be a real success. But it's getting the partners on board as well, because without those partners working with us, it becomes too much of a challenge.
If I can ask a supplementary, Chair. The first part of the question was, how will the impact of clear hold build be monitored, not only within the area where resources are being concentrated, but also across a wider geography?
Tell you what I'll do, I will ask Steph to come up, because Steph, who's working on this from my office, she will give you a more detailed answer. Go on, Steph.
Hi everyone, Steph Hull, Senior Policy and Partnerships Manager for the Police and Crime Commissioner's Office. So part of the monitoring arrangements is we look at the police morale score, and that's monitored throughout the clear hold build arrangement. When we're looking at Fleetwood, where we've been able to sort of monitor it already, Pendle's very much in its infancy, so we're just starting up. But we're looking at arrests, we're looking at seizures, we're looking at money recovered, and also one of the big positives that we've seen come out in the Fleetwood is the community intelligence, which is a big sign of the trust and confidence that we see. At the beginning of the clear hold build implementation in Fleetwood, the community was a bit nervous to talk to our officers and tell them what they were seeing on the streets, but sort of a year down the line, the community intelligence that the officers were getting on the street was incredible, and we did see that as a sign of the trust and confidence that they were seeing the results on the ground, seeing that the police were coming in, clearing the crime, partners were coming in, sort of building on, working around the community, working on community hubs, support available for the people on the ground, and then that sort of fed through and people started feeding back to us as and when crime was going on, because they believed that the officers were going to do something about it.
Steph, can I just press you a bit? Because
yeah.
my line of questioning is about the impact over a wider geography. I mean, it's pretty, obvious that if you concentrate resources into an area, that area will see an impact, and you've described that. But how is the impact of Clearhold Build, in this case, monitored over a wider geography so that you can say, I mean, are the organised criminal gangs moving out of the Clearhold Build area and operating elsewhere? Is the impact to the communities as a whole just moving its focus from one footprint to a wider footprint?
Yeah, so as part of the Clearhold Build initiative, it is looking at sort of the lines that are within sort of the criminal gangs. But as part of Clearhold Build in Pendle, they've got a dedicated task force. So that shouldn't take any resources away from the neighbourhood policing team around Pendle. But what they do is they obviously work as part of the policing division. And basically it's just a conversation, it's making sure they're talking to each other. But the dedicated resources as part of Clearhold Build aren't taking resource away from other neighbourhood policing teams who are there to deal with it. And also as part of that, that's being constantly monitored community confidence through the In the Know data. So they're looking at basically obviously crime levels, but where the police, communities are saying, do they have trust and confidence in the police? And that's being monitored on a quarterly basis.
Miranda.
More Clearhold Build, so you might want to stay where you were? No? Okay. So, I mean, first of all, there have been some super success in Fleetwood, and the constabulary talk about over £4 million worth of drugs and 325,000 odd pounds taken from drug dealers. This is a piece of work that was commissioned from the Home Office, supported by the University of Huddersfield. All of the people in this room are part of partner organisations that you're going to be talking to. How much has the evaluation of that project been shared? Because I don't think I've seen it. Everybody else might have, I might have just missed it. But it would be interesting to see what the actual evaluation looked like. And I'm conscious of paragraph 3 of this report, Clive, where you remind the panel of the role of the panel. And we can't be supportive of the Commissioner without knowing some of the rationale behind some of that. And I'll ask this question in a different way on the next item on the report. But it would be very useful, I think, to understand what that evaluation says and where it goes to. And I think one of the things that David was saying wasn't about removing officers, beat officers or neighbourhood officers, but actually does the tide of criminality from Nelson and Briarfield flow into Burnley, which will annoy the Burnley communities, and we already have issues. How is the situation in Fleetwood now? How successful is the build? So it'd be interesting to see what you do when you go as far as Southern Division and move into Skelmersdale, and where does some of that go to? And what steps are there for the Commissioner to understand the success that the constabulary is having with regard to removing some of those levels of criminality? Because removing the serious and organised crime is the trick. And as we've seen in Nelson Briarfield, we've had different groups of organised criminals coming into that area over the last 10 years or so. And it would be interesting to know whether there are specific targeted approaches, perhaps in conjunction with the Home Office and immigration colleagues, as to what your longer term success rate looks like. And I appreciate there's quite a lot in that. So the questions two, one, is there an evaluation and can we see it? And the second is, what monitoring of sustained success and prevention of escape, if you will, of serious and organised criminality will there be? Thank you.
Evaluation.
There is a national evaluation which we'd be happy to find and circulate. In terms of Fleetwood, there hasn't been an official evaluation yet, but we will be able to get sort of the stats and figures and make them available too.
And that's it with the monitoring. Kind of, it's early days, and we will continue looking at that and seeing what impact it has both within the areas, but also with the wider community.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments on that? And I think at a previous meeting, the panel were eager to get more information around all the metrics of outcomes and scrutiny, and the recent letter on the 101 calls was very much appreciated to get that level of detail. So there's a couple of queries there where I'm sure panel members would appreciate any interim update over the next couple of months on the back of those questions. Priority 4.
Rebuilding trust and confidence. You'll see that we've had a look at the way that we run accountability and scrutiny, and we have tweaked that so that now changes will take place with the way that we hold the Chief Constable and the force to account, and the details of that are within the papers. You will also have within Appendix 2 the performance papers, and also for scrutiny they are covered within Appendix 3. We also have a dedicated data hub that we are going to introduce that will be updated in terms of the performance statistics, and that will be something that should be available by the autumn of this year, that you will be able to go on and see the live statistics, the way we're performing, any trends that we have, and I think that will be a really useful tool for members of the panel, but also the wider public, that they will be able to see. It is about transparency. I do think we've got a good tale to tell. You know, we want people to be able to see the work that we are doing within Lancashire, and the data hub that will provide the information around that. Like I said, scrutiny panels and the work and the actual the way we hold the police to account is listed there, and I think in terms of I think what I'll do is I'll leave it there, because I know there'll be questions to answer on that. So,
Councillor Berry.
I might be off track, but I just want to ask a question about cybercrime and vulnerable residents. Obviously, crimes and scams are rising. What is being done to improve digital safety education and support for victims in Lancashire? Because it's very, very concerning.
Sorry, Julie. Can you just say that again?
What's been done to improve digital safety education and support for victims in Lancashire due to the because we've got this increase in cybercrime and scams targeting particularly older people?
So digital safety, yeah. in terms of volume crime, Chair, digital, the vast majority of crime has a digital footprint. In terms of fraud, exploitation, it's the biggest volume crime that we have. We have got dedicated teams within Lancashire. We We work in terms of with the businesses to encourage them to protect themselves. There is a range of support that we provide it's about prevention with digital. It's all about making the public aware of the challenges that they face. And so we work with young people, we work with businesses, and it is about kind of raising awareness. I don't know if there's any specific detail that you're looking for.
And perhaps there should be. Thank you, particularly for older people.
Any further questions or comments from the panel on this paper? Miranda.
Just one about the joint Independent Ethics Committee. There's not a lot of information about the type of conversation that you're having in those meetings. It would be interesting, I think, for the panel, in order to support the Commissioner, to understand some of those ethical dilemmas and to understand the Commissioner's view, particularly where it differs from that of the Constabulary. And I think it would be helpful to have some of that conversation. I might be on my own. I suspect I might not. So that's the question, please.
Now, I would ask Richard to come up, and he will probably be able to give you some detail. But I also think it might be something that we can give maybe a presentation on to a future meeting, so that we have specifically a presentation around the scrutiny meetings, but also just the ethics and just a wide, because just like throwing up a list of meetings that take place, I don't think gives you the flavour of actually just how much work goes on. So I'll let Richard answer now, but I do think as an item for a future meeting, it would be really useful.
Thanks, Chair. So, Miranda, the Joint Independent Ethics Committee came into fruition last May, so it's very much in its infancy. But in terms of what's published on the website, we have very, very detailed minutes there. They're almost verbatim of the actual conversations that took place, along with the actions as well. So they are on the website. It's open and transparent. We've been having a lot of dilemmas around AI. In particular, it's a particular point of interest at the moment. We've also been discussing things around pension forfeitures, how much they should be publicised. And recently, we've also had ethical dilemmas around the release of information into the public as well. So we're sort of taking those big picture ideas, discussing those ideas in a public forum, and discussing those with the constabulary. So the actual ethics meeting itself is comprised of independent members. They're recruited, they are also interviewed in terms of their skills, etc. We have people from academia, people who are counsellors on there as well. We've also got other people who are particularly, they have a background in ethics in general, and we've also been receiving some research proposals there too. And what we also do is utilise those members and inject those into force meetings. So they sit on internal force meetings and report back to the ethics meeting from an ethical perspective. So we have people sat on custody, scrutiny panels, the internal ethics panel, and a variety of others. So we ensure that we have that information coming back through, and then that is also all published in the minutes as well. So it's quite a robust arrangement. We're utilising it in a raft of different ways. Also, one of the offshoots of that is a joint professional standard scrutiny panel as well. So within that, we look at case files and complaints and monitor how the constabulary are assessing those in that meeting as well. We'll also look at the big data as well in terms of demographic trends, all these different things. So all very much a fledgling arrangement really, but we've really kicked on with it. We have a full work programme of items, which is also published on the website. So it's something that we're really supporting going forward. I know Clive's particularly supportive of that.
Councillor Hindle.
Thank you, Chair. And Miranda was correct, as usual. So, just to add to what Richard said, I sit on the Ethics Committee and I chair the Stop and Search Use of Force Committee, and I seem to pop up in various other different places as well. I am really glad that these have been carried out. I was quite concerned that with a change of Police and Crime Commissioner, this format might change. And the reason I say that is because it takes time to a group to get to find its feet, get to know each other, and start to join the dots. And I think that's one of the key things, is actually joining the dots between, say, stop and search and use of force and ethical dilemmas, or scrutiny, or people being detained in custody. And I think there's a really robust scenario emerging now, where there's appropriate challenge and support emerging from what are essentially lay people. I don't know what category I fall into, Richard, in terms of academia or lay members of a council. Probably put myself in the Preston North End supporters category. But I would emphasise that I think, and you get this back from the police as well, and senior police officers, as well as more junior people, in terms of the wariness drops away, that we're independent scrutiny, but we're here to provide a watchful eye, independent feedback and support from a community setting. I think the most important thing for me is, particularly my council hat on, is taking some of these key messages away that you've talked about this morning, Clive, and taking them back into my communities in terms of things like parish councils, council meetings, fellow councillors, and playing our part in increasing confidence in the police in terms of what they do. I'll give one example of that, is the use of force. We'll all have seen people huddled round incidents with the police, with people being filmed, the police officers being filmed on the cameras, when they are legitimately using force to, at an appropriate level, to exercise the duties and the powers. And that is an example of something that's really poorly understood by the public. The police have a job to do and need the tools to be able to do it. So that simple thing of increasing our awareness so that we can contribute to this agenda, I think is really meaningful. And I'd encourage anybody to look at in more detail about what we do and what we're getting up to. Last thing that you didn't, I don't think you mentioned there, Richard, is at the end of each period we produce an annual report, or an annual report is produced to demonstrate and showcase the work of the committees as well. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, thank you. In the past, I think the panel has devoted a lot of time to talking about the time taken to answer 101 calls, and it's very pleasing to see that those of the answering time has dramatically reduced. And I don't know, we haven't had the reason why it's done it. It'd be interesting to know how that's been accomplished, so that if there are any problems in the future, we can look at it. But the other downside to it, as I see it, is that the time for officers attending routine 101 calls is going up, particularly in the West Division. And I just wondered at your accountability meeting with the Chief Constable whether you got an explanation why this was happening, and particularly the situation in West Division, why it was taking much longer to answer these calls, because it does go to one of the questions of confidence of the public in the police, that they feel that they're making the call and they would like to think that it's going to be dealt with fairly quickly.
Yes, Chair. I mean, in terms of the timeliness to answer, but also for the police to come out, it's all part of the strategy around rebuilding the neighbourhood policing team and getting officers in the right place so that they are available to the public. I haven't got a specific answer for why in the West it's taken longer, but I will ask the question now it's been raised, and I will get back to Roger and let you know.
Didn't get a reason why there's been... What's happened? Is it more recruits, or you've altered times people are working? It's good to see it progress, and I'd like to know how it's been achieved.
Steve is going to answer for you.
You've answered the question yourself, Roger. Over the last 12 months, the work that's been done in the control room is to look very hard at not just the numbers of call handlers, but when they are working. And there's been a huge revamp of the rota structure. A lot of work was done to identify when most calls were being received, and surprise, surprise, there were certain times during the day, during the week, where most calls were being received, and certain times where there weren't very many, and the rota structure didn't really reflect that. And I think Constabulary recognised that, and now the rota structure has been changed significantly, so that the most resource is in place when the most calls are received, and a much reduced resource is in place when calls simply aren't being received. And interestingly, one of the advantages is there's been an increase in part-time and out of standard work hour shifts, which is attracting a different cohort of people who are able to work different shift patterns, and it's actually better for them for their work-life balance. So it's improving the work-life balance of staff as well, because there is a different range of rotas available, but the fundamental part is there's more people in the room answering the phone when most calls arrive, which is the answer you gave, so well done.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you. Just around the data hub, what information's in there that isn't already publicly available? Is it ONS data, or is it specific to the PCC's office? And are the costs attached there? What's the cost attached to the data hub?
So, Chair, the data hub is a hub that we can update on the crime stats and performance figures, so that then once it's updated, you'll be able to get live information around how well Lancashire is performing over a range of matrix, a range of kind of issues that might be of interest. But again, do you want to add to that, Richard?
Absolutely, yeah. So where this originated from was, I went to a good practice session. We're all for the APCC run. And there was a presentation there by Surrey OPCC. And they ultimately presented this fantastic data hub, and I thought, absolutely, this is what we need in terms of openness and transparency, but also public trust and confidence. Because at the moment, of course, we do publish the accountability board papers, but they're not very dynamic, and it's not a specific site. It's quite buried, not deliberately. It's just obviously how the papers are set out. So towards that aim, we've had a look at doing that. We're now working with an agency called Voodoo, who are going to be enabling us to basically create this vision into reality. So it's going to cover all of the police and crime plans, so anything notable that we do as an office will be reporting on there. Underneath there, there'll be crime statistics based on those particular priorities of the police and crime plan. We'll also be able to demonstrate how the budget is used, how much is the precept, how much is the grant, etc. And then from there, all sorts of different aspects of our police scrutiny. So we'll have all of our minutes and agendas on there as well. And then underneath there, there'll be mapping tools, which is utilising an API to populate a Google map in effect, where you can see every stop and search, every antisocial behaviour incident in the county. That is going to be based on police data, UK data and ONS data, because it's public, and therefore we can use that how we wish. So that's what we're going to be doing with that going forward. So we're anticipating that we'll be able to launch it in around autumn. That's what we've been told by the developers, so that's what we're holding them to. So hopefully we'll be able to show it at least in the December meeting, hopefully. Maybe in a separate session to the actual panel, but more than happy to show it at any point.
Thank you.
Okay. No further questions or comments? Anything further to add on that report? Brilliant. So the panel will note that report. Thank you very much. And on to PCC decisions. Yep. Panel happy to note that. Okay, great. And then item number 12 is the panel budget.
Thank you, Chair. In relation to the panel budget, can I ask if I can bring a report to next committee, mainly because we've yet to finalise the finance details. It's yet to be submitted to the Home Office. So that's going to be due on the 11th of July. Right.
Panel's happy with that. We'll come back at a later point. Thank you. Complaints and monitoring.
Thank you, Chair, again. I can confirm that there are no complaints in relation to the PCC or the Deputy PCC.
Good to hear. Thank you. Item number 14, urgent business. I've got nothing. Nope. Okay. And then for dates of future meetings, so they have been printed in the papers that have been circulated, but I'd like to suggest one amendment that we bring forward the 29th of September meeting to Monday, the 22nd of September, to avoid a clash with the Labour Party annual conference, which could mean we don't have attendance from a number of panel members on PCC and Deputy PCC, which I think is important. Okay, we're happy with that amendment. Thank you, and please no, no excuse. Thank you very much, panel. That concludes the...
22nd. 22nd of September.
Yeah, provided officer are okay with that. Yeah. That concludes the panel AGM. Thank you very much. We'll have a quick break now. We'll get some lunch and then we'll have the induction training. Thank you.